Now is the time to become educated God's way in regard to disease, its causes, prevention, and cure in just 8 simple steps.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Join us for a new start every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. on WOKB 1680 for 8 Steps to Health, brought to you by Saved to Serve Ministries.
Good morning, Orlando, and welcome to 8 Steps to Health, brought to you by Saved to Serve Ministries. I'm your host, Dwayne Powell.
And your co-host, Hope Powell.
And we are very excited to be here today. So please stop whatever you're doing. Grab your notepad or writing utensils because we have some important information to share with you today. Today, as usual, we're joined in the studio with some of our team members from Save to Serve Ministries, the health missionaries who travel around the country teaching health principles from the Bible. Today, we got Lauren, Jared, and Richard.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And every week, we share these 8 steps to health, which are based on God's Word, our Bible, the health manual, and we break down these principles using the acronym of New Start, right? Yeah. So quickly, what does New Start stand for?
N stands for nutrition, E stands for exercise,
W stands for water, S for sunlight, T for temperance.
A for air, R for rest, and the last T for trust in God.
And by now, all of our listeners know that it's time to sing the New Start theme song, so sing along with us.
Nutrition,
exercise,
water, sunlight, temperance, air and rest,
trust in God.
Nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air and rest,
trust in God, trust in God, trust in God.
That's right. Trust in God is the foundation of these health principles and the number 1 prevention for stress. So if you missed any of our previous broadcasts, please visit our website at 8stepstohealth.com. 8stepstohealth.com. Yeah, I'm tongue-tied right now.
All right, so Orlando, you already know the theme for our show is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And every week our objective, it is to become intelligent in regard to disease, its causes, prevention, and cure.
And with that being said, we are going to continue with our series on understanding the body organs and how they relate to these 8 laws of health. And specifically over the last few weeks, we have been talking about the brain and targeting the issues concerning the frontal lobe, and how living in harmony with these 8 laws of health will help both prevent the diseases that affect the frontal lobe and how to cure those diseases of the frontal lobe.
So let's just do a little recap. Last week we talked about hypnosis and how hypnosis affects the frontal lobe because by design it bypasses the frontal lobe and speaks to your subconscious. And hypnosis affects your mental, spiritual, and your physical spheres. Yep. So hypnosis is, think of it like this. When you think of a bird and a bird is trying to catch its prey, let's say a snake or a fish, it's eyeing that prey and that's the only thing it's focused on. And when people are hypnotized, they're only focused on one thing and they are not aware of what is going on in their environment. And so when someone is in a hypnotic state, they can now follow the suggestions of the hypnotist. And we see this example in scripture. Genesis chapter 3, when Eve was speaking with the serpent, the devil, and the devil told her basically to go against God. And she listened to the devil, and we know that she was hypnotized. How do we know? Because she made the wrong decision.
I wonder if our listeners can figure out already what we're going to be talking about today.
They might or may not. Let's see how it goes, Hope. Now, we also mentioned last week about the 2 main frequencies of the brain, which are the alpha as well as the beta waves. Now, just to reiterate what those are, the beta waves are your normal electrical activities of the brain when you are either alert, attentive, engaged in problem solving or decision making, or focused on one thing, or focused mentally on a mental activity. Now, these mental activities now require the use of your beta waves. Now, alpha waves, on the other hand, are brain waves that are dominant when you're either relaxed or during quietly flowing thoughts. In essence, alpha is the resting state of your brain, and we're going to get into it as we go throughout our presentation today.
All right, here it goes. Did you know that there may be something in your home that unknowingly puts you into a type of hypnotic trance? Wow. If you are like the average American, several rooms in your house are equipped with something that you focus your eyes on. Mm-hmm. That's a hint.
There's a hint there.
Flickers every few seconds and can produce a hypnotic-like trance. It is one of the most popular devices of all times. You know what it is?
That sounds like the TV.
That is the television set.
That's a television.
And more than 96% of American homes have at least one. And we call it the home hypnotist.
It's interesting that 96% of Americans have a television in their home. That can suggest that 96% of Americans are living in a hypnotic state. And although there are many ways to be hypnotized, Jerry Mander, he's an American activist and author, and he's best known for his 1977 book, 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. And in there, we found a section where a number of hypnosis experts defined and agreed that television is a hypnotist. So just like people are hypnotists, these people came together, these experts, and they agreed that television is a hypnotist.
Wow.
And furthermore, we were doing some research with Dr. Thomas Mullahan, and he was looking at some children's EEGs, and they were watching their favorite television show, and they've seen it before. And the research assumed that since they saw these shows before, they would be mentally involved when reviewing it. But unfortunately, between the alpha brainwave and the beta brainwave, as Richard spoke of earlier, in just 2 to 3 minutes of the show, they sat back and stayed almost entirely in an alpha state of mind.
Wow.
This means that while they were watching this show that they've seen several times, they were not reacting, they were not orienting, they were not focusing, they were just spaced out.
Hypnotized
By the television.
The home hypnotist is the topic for today.
Right. And it's interesting because many people may say that, as you brought out that number, 96% of people have that TV into their home. They may say, well, I have the TV in my house, but I don't necessarily watch it.
Right.
Okay, we understand that, we get that. So what is the flip side? What's the alternative for that now? You have your computer,
Yes,
your laptop, your smartphones now, your iPads have become the modern television, and it's more convenient now because you're able to bring those devices with you. You have your iPad, your smartphone with you wherever you go. So you're bringing your TV now wherever you go, in your cars, out on the road. You have that accessible in your hands.
Some people bring them into the church.
Even
Exactly.
into the church.
And they can't, and that's sad because, you're there to worship God, not to watch even like Veggie Tales or cartoons or whatever.
True.
And a lot of people, you drive around Orlando and you see them with the thing that's stuck to the dashboard with the smartphone right there.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know
right
what
there.
that's for, but I assume it's for television or even filming yourself.
Right.
So it's like you can't get away from it, and you're just set on having it around you all the time. And some cars come equipped with the DVD players and
televisions in there.
That's right.
televisions in there, and
Big
it's
screens.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's ever present.
So with that being said, let's talk about the setting of entertainment, whether it be through the means of your television or your cell phone, your iPad, whatever device you're using is very similar to a typical environment for hypnotism induction. For example, usually when you go to the movies or when you're watching a movie, what kind of setting is it?
It's a dark room.
It's a dark room
right, yeah.
and a flickering light, right? Which would be very similar to the TV set
Yeah.
or that cell phone or whatever device you're using. And that in itself is used as a single-minded focus and freedom from all outside diversions.
Yeah, and that's even in the home. When you set up to watch your television show, you turn off all the lights, you close the blinds, you get your drink, your popcorn, whatever it is, your food, and you sit there hypnotized. You know,
You don't want to be distracted.
you don't
by
want to be
anything
distracted.
else.
You don't want the sun to come in. So
Even if,
Although the television is the biggest distraction,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
can be rather, but we don't want it to distract us, so we darken everything in the room. So that brings us to our first question on today's topic. Does what you watch make any difference on your mind and your character?
Well, the answer here is both yes and no, because although the content you watch does exert a powerful influence upon your mind, also the TV itself can also have profound effects upon your mind, because evidence suggests that the TV has detrimental effects. The deleterious frontal lobe effect appears to be the result of the camera switching work in most videos and in other programming. So the way that the camera changes, this is what has the effect upon the mind.
And it's very interesting that you say that, because in the filming industry, there is a technique that is referred to as the rapidly changing scene reference. And this means that the average television program changes its scenes of reference every 3 to 5 seconds. For example, when we watch TV or you're watching a movie, it's constantly switching from scene to scene.
Right.
You know, one moment he's on top of the roof, one moment he's on the floor, one moment, you know, it's so many different things. And people don't even realize that over time, it's so captivating and it causes them to be even hypnotized. Right. Whereas in reality, we can only see one scene at a time, depending where you are. And so now that it's 2018, you know, the numbers have tripled, have completely changed.
And when you talk about this rapidly changing scene reference, no wonder most of children and adults have ADHD.
Oh, definitely.
Because our minds are ever being told, now focus over here, now this is important. No, not anymore. This is important. Much like even the news, one moment they're talking about one topic, the next moment it's another topic. So we have to be careful what we're letting into our eye gates.
which is also true with the music videos. They constantly change scenes, even action movies. Like you said, one moment the hero's on top of the roof, he's jumping, and if you step out of the room for 1 second, you feel like you missed the whole movie.
True.
That's true.
Because you're hypnotized. But nowadays, what do we have? We can stop, pause, rewind,
Rewind
fast
forward.
forward.
DVR.
Exactly, and we want to make it clear that, you know, TV in itself is not bad. It's the content that you watch that can be detrimental
And the
to.
frequency.
And we're talking about the frontal lobe and being hypnotized, and you definitely have to be careful of what you watch, what you allow into your mind.
Content important.
So let's get back to our health manual, because there is a principle found within the Bible where we see the detrimental effects of TV. And for those Bible scholars out there, you may be wondering, well, the Bible does not mention the word TV at all. So what are you talking about? Well, let's see here in the book of Genesis chapter 30. This is when Jacob was watering Laban's cattle. And as he was doing so, he wanted to increase the amount of speckled and spotted cattle. And so what he did was he got a rod that was essentially speckled and spotted, and he placed it before them as they came to drink, as they came to eat, as they came to mate and to have pleasure. And as they beheld this rod, they brought forth speckled and spotted cattle. So what's the application for us? It is as we are, many of us, and even myself, in the past, watching these movies and television shows, we often eat along with it. We often have pleasure along with it. And it is having an effect upon our character. What we see, we will bring forth. As 2 Corinthians 3 verse 18 tells us, that principle, for as we behold, we become changed.
I know, for example, when I was younger, I used to watch the Rocky movies.
Oh, yes.
I used to go to the movies, and every time I came out, I thought I could box like,
That's
Rocky.
it.
Like Rocky.
And whatever movie it is, you portray that movie that you just watched or that TV show that you just watched. And even some career choices, people take those things, like you see, New York or these big cities, and you say, I want to do that.
Right.
I want that type of job. I want that type of car or whatever. And just like Jared spoke about 2 Corinthians 3:18, by beholding these things, that's you become changed.
So true.
So in essence, when we watch TV, we're training ourselves not to react, and later on we find ourselves doing the same things and we don't even know we're doing them. It becomes, it's searing our subconscious, it's bypassing that frontal lobe and changing our character. So now that we talked about how it affects our minds and our character, let's get into some environmental factors that negatively affect people, including ourselves. So let's talk about environment. Can the environment affect what you watch on television?
Definitely. I know for me, I'm thinking back to, a time when I would go to a certain church, and there in the church, they would turn it into a movie theater. You would see
Youth night.
Get all the youth out, dress down, whatever. Go to the church where you would normally have worship. They would play a movie on the big screen, dim the lights, just like a movie theater. And then now, all these things are taking place that shouldn't be taking place. And also, I remember friends telling me that in another church they went to, the same thing would happen, but they would also bring in food now into the sanctuary, the very place where you should be worshiping God, and, it should be a holy place.
Right. And when I think of other environmental factors, when I was younger, I used to go to the sports bars because basketball, football, baseball season. And what do they have in these sports bars? These huge televisions. And everybody's sitting around. We're yelling, we're screaming, we're cheering. But that's not all we're doing. We're ordering drinks after drink after drink. We're eating all this nasty fried food. And we're becoming hypnotized by what we're watching and what we're eating. And so again, whatever environment we put ourselves in while we're watching this home hypnotist or sports bar hypnotist or sadly to say church hypnotist,
even car hypnotist,
Yep.
we have to be
Everywhere.
careful of the environment we put ourselves in, because that's going to determine what we watch.
That's right. And it not only affects adults, but it affects the children as
Very
well.
much.
When children are left alone and the parents aren't necessarily giving them that parental guidance that's needed, it really opens up for them to have that opportunity to search the internet.
Right.
Literally, the world is at the tip of their fingers. And on the internet, you can literally research anything.
That's
You
right.
know, and then you wonder why little Billy is conducting himself this way,
Right.
or, saying
ADD.
this, saying these things that you didn't teach him. But it's through watching, whether it's pornography or, the television, the
Right.
action shows. Those things really do stay in the character.
Right. And we cannot talk about the environment without talking about the content.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the content of television. So
Well, let's get right into it. I remember again, thinking back to one of my favorite movies of all time, and this is a classic. I'm sure everyone listening has watched or heard of The Lion King. That was a classic. I knew that movie from front to back. I could quote it. But there's a lot of subliminal messages in that movie.
Yeah.
And not just that one, but other Disney movies. I mean, they would talk about in Lion King how you die, you turn into the grass, the antelope eat the grass, and now you're all in the circle of life and reincarnation, basically. Anyone else? Can you think of other movies, shows?
Okay, so some people on here might hear me and I'm not listening to her anymore, because I'm going to talk about The Cosby Show, and I'm going to talk about A Different World, which was my favorite all-time show ever. But even though The Cosby Show in itself, they didn't curse, you didn't see them drink, you didn't see them do drugs.
well, they drank wine. I think a few shows I saw it.
Oh,
but-
okay, I didn't notice. But what you never saw them do, unless someone elderly came or unless it was a school function, they didn't mention God very often. That's not something they taught the family, that God should be the center. Number one, different world, fornication upon fornication
definitely.
everywhere, left and right. And also, there's nothing wrong with education. But if that's all a show is going to teach you, you're going to grow up and think that my life is to go to school, get a job, get married, have children, and make lots of money. And that's not what we're here to do. We're here to glorify God and
That's
be
right.
prepared
Give God
for his
glory.
second coming.
Yeah.
And make
right.
heaven our
That's true.
home. We're just passing through here on earth.
Yeah, you also got to be aware of the commercials. Not only the television show, but the commercials. You're watching a commercial that has subliminal messages. Next thing you know, you want to eat Doritos or drink Coca-Cola.
Or Sprite.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
Sprite or whatever it is.
Or buy this product.
Or buy this
Yeah.
product and know you can't afford it, and you got to have it right now.
now.
So it's training you. They don't spend millions of dollars to not have you, be hypnotized to spend that type of money.
Right, but let's go right back to content. Because a lot of parents, a lot of them think that the Disney Channel is the safest thing on earth. But I was reading an article from the New York Post, and it's entitled, "The Disney Channel is no longer safe for our kids." And here's one portion of it that really stuck out to us. The Disney Channel and its spinoff, Disney XD, are no longer safe spaces for kids. The kid characters on Disney shows are often mouthy and disrespectful to parents and authority figures. And they make these authority figures appear muddle-headed and embarrassing and square. And even many of the strange animated characters on Disney make crass and nasty comments. And I have to say, a few years ago when my niece was younger and I was cooking or I had something to do and she, didn't have anything, I didn't think of something constructive for her to do, I would say, here, watch the Disney Channel. Don't turn it into any other station. Disney Channel is safe. But as we see, as the children grow older and they start reacting on certain things, we have to remember, what did we allow them to watch? So all of those parents who are listening, even children who may be listening, Disney is not safe.
And as you remember, if you even look at some of those Disney stars, you can see what they become afterwards. They look so innocent. Lauren, we were talking about this earlier, how these Disney stars, they look so innocent. They have these such good stories, but after, outside of the show, they're addicted to drugs, crack cocaine, all these things are happening in early death. So exactly, it's the environment upon what we're watching and those kind of things. So we just have to be mindful of these things.
So very quickly, we want the team, and we're going to share with you how TV has affected us, because we're not perfect. We still watch certain television shows. There's a lot of stuff we don't watch anymore, but we've all been affected. But through the power of the Holy Spirit and Jesus Christ, we are being changed into his image day by day, moment by moment. So let's share with our viewers, how has TV affected you?
Well, TV definitely affected me because it caused me to become desensitized. You're watching these scenes, morbid scenes that are not Christ-like, nothing edifying. And it really does change your character, whereas in reality, if you were to see certain things, you would go, you would be in shock. But certain things on the television, because it's acquainted with laughter or, some kind of joke, it's not taken as good as it should be.
For me, I know that watching TV, I would begin to say certain things or act out certain things and not know why I was doing it until someone would confront me. And then I'd think back to, okay, where did I get that from? And I could trace it back to a TV commercial, whatever show, imitating those things.
And I personally lived in La La Land. I used to watch certain shows, especially sci-fi shows and romantic shows, 90210, and oh my gosh, that's what relationships are supposed to be. And it gave me a false perception of what love and relationship is supposed to be. And that's what I expected in life, but that's not what really was happening. So that's how TV negatively affected me.
I personally was addicted to TV like a drug, like a bad drug. I was addicted to TV and even the internet, binge watching those TV shows, those movies for hours on end. Sundays, I would spend my whole day binge watching on these shows just for entertainment. It was never edifying, never encouraging to me. I just found myself in a stupor, and it was on and on, on and on, on and on. And I had to really ask God for not only the desire, but also the power to overcome this addiction, because that's what it really is. Once you're hypnotized, it's now an addiction because you want to always be in front of that TV, that internet. And two scriptures came up to me that really encouraged me. One found in Psalm 101, verse 3, which says, I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. So that was the promise for me. I had to ask God, allow me to not set anything wicked before my eyes.
Amen.
Under the influence of the fast-moving television, the frontal lobe cannot function at full capacity. The brain records the information, sight, memory, and the emotions are all functioning. Nevertheless, the brain is no longer critically analyzing the information. So, it records it, but it's not critically analyzing it, and it's so much that will slip past your frontal lobe.
You're not able to say this is right, this is wrong.
Exactly.
You're just taking it in.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's right.
So not only that, but also when someone gets killed on television, the viewer many times is appalled but intrigued. Sometimes, when you watch certain movies, you're looking and there's like the superhero. I think Jared was referring to that. Can you share what you were saying when it comes to like the superhero when you're watching television?
Oh yeah, I'd want to be just like the superhero. And also when you look at them, they're killing these people and like, yeah, get them. But then if you see someone die in real life, you might pull out your phone and record it instead of calling 911.
Right. So last article that we found on CNN, which is the World Health Organization, and they said that in 2018, they're going to recognize gaming disorders as a mental health condition. So that is also another form of hypnotism, which is video games. Many children and adults watch video games so much that they're going to have to label it a health condition.
Wow. I mean, that's powerful, because even if you remember back in the example of the Columbine shooting back in 1999, it was reported that those two young people, those two young boys, they were addicted to video games. Addicted to video games, that they were, and these video games are laced with brutality, with violence. And it's interesting that some studies have shown that these games cause aggressive behavior and even can lead to going out and shooting up your school
or raping people. I heard of a game, they call it what was it called?
Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto,
yeah.
where you can
GTA.
actually go and rape a young lady,
GTA, yeah.
to show your strength and power. I mean, that's
If you can do it in a video game, you can do it in
do
real
it in real
life.
life.
Exactly.
Wow.
And again, television for certain type of content, it's good. You watch the news, you find out what's going on, the weather, education, documentaries. There's so much you can watch. But in the Bible, in Ephesians 5 verse 16, it says, redeeming the time because the days are evil. And we look at the news right now, the days are evil.
Yeah.
Just from
Definitely.
seeing, the internet or whatever it is, which means redeeming the time, which means that we must make the most of every minute of our time. If we truly believe that we're living in the last days, then we must be preparing for Christ's soon return.
Amen.
We cannot do this if we're in a hypnotic state. I know I was guilty of watching hours upon hours of television, just sitting in front of the television. I can't get that time back. Once you sit there for 2 hours, that 2 hours is gone. Now, when Jesus comes, only those who reflect the lovely image of Christ will be saved. That is why our minds must dwell on heavenly things.
That's right.
In Colossians 3, verse 2, it says, set your affections on the things above, not on things of the earth. God will give you the strength to let go of all of those shows only if you ask him.
And we have been singing this song from 1 John 5:4 every week, and it talks about the victory. We have gotten the victory over watching certain shows. We are still getting the victory. And those of you who are listening should be encouraged. It's not too late. 1 John 5:4.
For whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world. Whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world. And this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith, even our faith, even our faith. And this is the victory, 1 John 5:4, even our faith, even our faith, even our faith.
Amen. So be encouraged, and remember to come out this Sunday, April 29th, for the last Sunday free grocery distribution. We are giving away fresh produce. We're giving away grains. We're giving away peanut butter and jelly and pasta, flour, cornmeal. Come out this Sunday and get you some free groceries.
Yes, and not only that, we're having our prayer tent. It has been such a blessing. So many people have come out, and we have been blessed ourselves praying with people. And also, we're having our health tent. Do not miss that. It has been very educational, speaking about how to overcome diabetes.
And remember that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So don't forget to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, and our website, 8stepstohealth.com. And we will be at the WOKB studios this Sunday, April 29th at 50 Clark Road in Ocoee, Florida. We will see you there at 2 p.m.
All right, Orlando, we'll see you Sunday. Thank you for joining us. God bless.